A wheelchair-bound millionaire offered $1 million to anyone who could cure him. He laughed when a humble young girl accepted the challenge, but what she did would change his life forever. Centennial Parklands in the exclusive Sydney suburb of Bellevue Hill was unusually crowded that afternoon. Dozens of people had gathered, forming a perfect circle around an imposing figure. Hamish McGregor, the country's most powerful property magnate, sat motionless in his titanium wheelchair, his steel blue eyes sweeping over the crowd with a mix of disdain and cruel amusement. $1 million, he boomed, raising his index finger to the sky, like a Roman emperor deciding a gladiator's fate. $1 million for anyone who can cure me and make me walk again. The crowd murmured nervously. Some smiled in disbelief, others whispered amongst themselves. Hamish had been paralyzed for 3 years since a car accident had shattered his spine, but not his fortune or his arrogance. The world's top doctors had been categorical. He would never walk again. Yet, here he was, offering a fortune for the impossible. "Mr. McGregor," a reporter dared to ask, approaching with her microphone. "Is this some kind of joke? Specialists have said your condition is irreversible." Hamish let out a blood-curdling laugh. "Exactly, because it's impossible. Because I want to see how many charlatans, how many false prophets, how many deluded fools will try to make easy money." His eyes gleamed with malice. "I want to have fun, watching them fail, one by one." Amidst the crowd, murmurs grew. Doctors, healers, physiotherapists, and all sorts of people began to approach. Hamish had set simple rules. Anyone could try for a few minutes. If, at the end of that time, he managed to stand up and take at least 10 steps, they would win the $1 million. If they failed, they would be publicly humiliated and expelled from the venue. The first to try were the doctors. Dr. Reynolds, a prestigious neurosurgeon, approached confidently, but after performing various exercises and manipulations, he had to admit defeat to Hamish's merciless laughter. "Next!" the millionaire shouted, relishing every moment of others' humiliation. One after another came a chiropractor who applied spinal manipulation techniques, an acupuncturist who precisely inserted needles, a physiotherapist who attempted electrical stimulation, and even a supposed spiritual healer who performed strange rituals with smoky herbs. All failed. With each failure, Hamish's laughter grew louder, more cruel. "Pathetic!" he roared. "All of you are pathetic fools." His voice echoed through the park, causing some spectators to start drifting away, uncomfortable with the cruelty of the spectacle. It was then that the softest voice in the world cut through the air like a whisper that somehow managed to silence the entire crowd. "I can do it." All heads turned towards the source of that crystalline voice. From amidst the adult crowd emerged a tiny figure who looked like a lost angel in the real world. Daisy Miller, a girl of barely 9 years old, dressed in a faded but clean pink dress, with shoes that were clearly too big for her, and her hair tied in 2 untidy plaits. A deathly silence fell over the place. Hamish blinked several times, as if he couldn't process what he was seeing. Then, slowly, a devilish smile began to spread across his face. "Excuse me," he asked in a dangerously low voice. "What did you say, little one?" Daisy stepped forward, her brown eyes shining with a determination that defied her age. "I said I can cure you, sir." The ensuing laughter was so loud that some birds flew away startled from the nearby trees. Hamish doubled over with laughter, hitting the arm of his wheelchair. "This is incredible," he shouted between guffaws. "A scruffy kid claims she can win $1 million. This is better than any comedy." The crowd was divided between those who laughed with him and those who looked with pity at the little girl. But Daisy did not flinch. Her bare feet remained firmly planted on the grass, and her gaze did not leave the millionaire's mocking face for a second. "You know what, little one?" Hamish said, wiping tears of laughter from his eyes. "I'll let you try. It'll be the icing on the cake for this afternoon's entertainment." "I'm not a beggar," Daisy replied in a serene but firm voice. "And I'm not here for your money." This stopped Hamish's laughter dead in its tracks. "What do you mean you're not here for the money? Then what do you want?" The girl's eyes filled with a deep sadness that seemed too great for someone so small. "I want you to be happy, sir, because people who hurt others like that are hurting from something very ugly inside." A murmur ran through the crowd like a wave. Some began to exchange surprised glances. A 9-year-old girl had psychologically diagnosed one of the country's most powerful men. Hamish felt as if he had been slapped. For a moment, his mask of arrogance cracked, but he quickly recomposed it. "Enough of this nonsense," he roared. "I'll give you a few minutes, and when you fail like all the others, I want you to leave and never come back." But, intrigued by her serenity, Hamish eventually let her continue. Daisy nodded solemnly. "All right, but first I need you to tell me something." "What?" "What was your childhood dream? What did you want to be when you grew up?" The question dropped like a bombshell in the silence. Hamish looked at her as if she had spoken a foreign language. "What does that have to do with curing me?" "Everything," Daisy replied simply. "I can't heal your body if I don't understand what happened to your heart." For the first time all afternoon, Hamish McGregor was completely speechless. The crowd held its breath. A 9-year-old girl had managed to do something no doctor, no specialist, no adult had achieved. She had touched something real in the soul of the city's cruelest man. And this was just the beginning. Seconds stretched like hours. Hamish McGregor, the man who had built a property empire based on coldness and calculation, found himself for the first time in years completely disarmed by a little girl's question. My childhood dream," he murmured, and his voice had lost all its previous arrogance. It was as if the words had been extracted from somewhere very deep that he had kept locked away for decades. The crowd remained in absolute silence. Even the reporters had lowered their cameras, as if sensing they were witnessing something sacred. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to," Daisy said softly, taking another step closer to the wheelchair. "But if you want me to help you, I need to know the child you were before you became the man you are now." Hamish closed his eyes. When he opened them again, there was something different in them, a vulnerability no one had ever seen. I wanted to be a children's teacher," he whispered, and the words seemed to catch in his throat. "I always wanted to teach children to read, to write, to dream." A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. Hamish McGregor, the ruthless magnate who mercilessly evicted families, had once dreamed of teaching children. "And what happened to that dream?" Daisy asked. And there was so much love in her voice that several people among the spectators felt their eyes well up with tears. Hamish swallowed hard. My father told me that was for losers, that teachers were failures, that they weren't good for making real money. He forced me to study business, to become tough, to feel nothing for anyone." "And you believed him?" "I believed him because I loved him and wanted him to be proud of me," Hamish admitted, his voice cracking slightly. "But I never achieved it. It was never enough. I built this empire, accumulated more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and he died without ever telling me he was proud." Daisy nodded with understanding that defied her age. "And now you hurt others like your dad hurt you." The accusation, delivered with such tenderness, hit Hamish like a hammer. I don't." "Yes, you do," Daisy interrupted gently. "But that can change. May I try to help you?" Hamish looked into her eyes for the first time, not as an object of his ridicule, but as a human being. And what he saw there left him breathless. Pure, unconditional, non-judgmental love. How? How can a child like you love someone like me?" he asked with a broken voice. Daisy smiled, and it was as if the sun had come out in the middle of a storm, because beneath all that anger, I can still see the child who wanted to teach other children to dream. Without asking permission, Daisy moved closer and placed her small hands on Hamish's immobile knees. The contact was like an electric shock for him, but not of pain, but of something he had forgotten existed. Genuine, human warmth. "Now," Daisy said, closing her eyes, "I need you to do something for me." "What?" "I want you to close your eyes and think about the first day you dreamed of being a teacher. Think about the children you wanted to help. Feel that emotion again." Hamish hesitated, but something in the girl's voice reassured him. He closed his eyes and for the first time in decades allowed his mind to travel to that place buried in his memory. He saw himself at 8 years old, sitting on the floor of the public library, reading stories to a group of children younger than himself. He remembered their faces lighting up when he explained the letters, when he helped them discover the magical world of words. "Can you feel it?" Daisy asked softly. "Yes," Hamish whispered, and a tear rolled down his cheek. "I can feel it. That child never left Mr. McGregor. He was just hidden beneath a lot of pain." As she spoke, Daisy began to do something extraordinary. Her small hands, which remained on Hamish's knees, began to move in very gentle circular motions, as if she were kneading something invisible. "What are you doing?" Hamish asked, without opening his eyes. "My Nana June taught me that soul wounds are stored in the body," Daisy explained. "When someone hurts our heart a lot, the body gets sick too." Some of the doctors present exchanged skeptical glances, but remained silent. There was something about the scene that captivated them. Your dad hurt your heart when he told you your dreams were worthless. Daisy continued, her hands now moving towards Hamish's thighs. And you stored that sadness here in your legs because you couldn't walk towards your true dreams. A shiver ran down Hamish's spine. He hadn't felt anything in his legs since the accident, but somehow he could perceive the girl's hands. Now I want you to forgive your dad, Daisy said. I can't, Hamish replied immediately. Not after everything he did to me. You're not forgiving him for him, Daisy explained patiently. You're forgiving him for you, so you can free yourself from the pain. It's very difficult, I know, but I'm going to help you. Daisy began to speak very softly, so much so that only Hamish could hear her. But her voice had a hypnotic quality that seemed to reach straight into his soul. Your dad was also a child once, a child who probably someone hurt a lot. And he didn't know how to be different. He didn't know how to love without hurting. Tears now streamed freely down Hamish's face. But you can be different. You can choose not to keep hurting. How? Hamish asked, in a broken voice, returning to the teacher he always wanted to be. At that moment, something extraordinary began to happen. Hamish felt as if an incredibly heavy burden was lifting from his chest. The knot of rage he had carried throughout his adult life began to dissolve. Breathe deeply, Daisy whispered. Hamish obeyed, and as the air filled his lungs, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Peace. Now, Daisy said with a smile in her voice. Open your eyes and try to wiggle your toes. Hamish opened his eyes slowly. He looked down at his immobile feet on the wheelchair's footrests. I can't, he murmured. The doctors said. Doctors know a lot about sick bodies, Daisy interrupted gently. But I know something about souls that want to heal. With his heart beating so hard he thought it would burst from his chest, Hamish focused all his attention on his feet. And then it happened. His right big toe moved. It was barely 1 millimeter, so small it could almost have been his imagination. But he felt it. After 3 years of nothing, he felt something. The crowd held its breath when they saw the look of absolute shock on Hamish's face. What's happening? Someone shouted from the back. Hamish didn't respond. He was concentrating with fierce intensity, and slowly, very slowly, he managed to move all the toes on both feet. A murmur of disbelief ran through the crowd like a wave. Daisy, Hamish whispered, his voice full of wonder. What's happening to me? The girl smiled with tears in her eyes. You're remembering who you truly are, Mr. McGregor, and your body is remembering how to live without so much pain. But the doctors said it was impossible. Doctors were looking at your x-rays, Daisy explained, but they couldn't see your heart. And when the heart heals, sometimes the body finds ways to heal too. Hamish looked at the small girl who had achieved in minutes what years of medicine had not. Who are you really? Daisy tilted her head modestly. I'm just a girl who learned from her Nana June that love can heal things medicine can't touch. But then, suddenly, Daisy's expression changed. Her face paled, and her hands began to tremble. Daisy, what's wrong? Hamish asked, alarmed. I. The girl swayed slightly. Someone help her, Hamish shouted, trying desperately to get out of his chair to help the girl who had just changed his life. And then, before the incredulous eyes of all present, Hamish McGregor managed to stand up. The world stopped. Hamish McGregor, the man who had spent 3 years confined to a wheelchair, was standing. His legs trembled like leaves in a storm, but they supported him. The muscles, doctors had declared dead, responded to his will for the first time since the accident. But his personal miracle faded as he saw Daisy swaying dangerously. Daisy! He cried, extending his arms towards her. Just as the girl began to collapse, the little one fell forward, and Hamish managed to catch her against his chest. The impact almost made him lose his balance, but his legs, though weak, found the necessary strength to keep both of them standing. The crowd erupted in a chaos of shouts and exclamations. Reporters' cameras went wild, capturing every second of what seemed like a double miracle. He's walking! It's impossible! Call an ambulance for the girl! Hamish ignored all the commotion. His attention was completely focused on the small figure resting in his arms. Daisy's face had taken on an alarming paleness, and her breathing was weak and irregular. Daisy, look at me, he whispered with a broken voice. What's wrong? The girl's eyelids opened slowly, revealing eyes that seemed to have aged decades in minutes. When she spoke, her voice was barely a sigh. It's all right, Mr. McGregor. It was what had to happen. What do you mean? He asked desperately, feeling tears begin to roll down his cheeks. What's happening to you? Daisy smiled faintly. My Nana June explained that when we help someone heal, sometimes we have to carry a little bit of their pain. A shiver of horror ran through Hamish's body. No, don't tell me that. Don't worry, the girl murmured. It's worth it. You won't hurt any more people. At that moment, a gruff voice cut through the air from the edge of the crowd. Daisy! All eyes turned to an elderly woman pushing her way through the spectators with desperation. Her gray hair was disheveled, her clothes worn but clean, and her wrinkled face showed a mix of relief and terror. "Nana June!" Daisy exclaimed, with what little energy she had left. The old woman rushed over to where Hamish was holding her granddaughter. Her eyes, the same brown as Daisy's, quickly assessed the situation. "What did you do, my girl?" she asked in a trembling voice, though she didn't seem surprised. "What you taught me, Nana, to help heal." Nana June nodded sadly and turned to Hamish. "Sir, please, give her to me. I need to take her home." Hamish looked at the old woman with distrust. "Who are you? What's wrong with Daisy? She needs a hospital." "Hospitals can't cure what she has now," Nana June replied calmly. "And I'm her Nana, the only family she has left. But she needs medical help." "What she needs," the old woman interrupted firmly, "is rest, and for her body to process what she's just done." Hamish felt an instinctive resistance. He didn't want to let go of the girl who had changed his life. "I don't understand what's happening here. Why did she faint? What does carrying the pain mean?" Nana June sighed deeply. "Daisy was born with a gift, sir. She can see the pain people carry in their souls and help them heal it. But every time she does, she absorbs a part of that suffering." That's Hamish searched for words. "That's inhumane. She's just a child." "She is," the old woman admitted. "And that's why I tried to keep her away from situations like this. But she ran off when she saw the news about your challenge." The crowd had drawn closer, listening to every word of the exchange. Reporters adjusted their microphones to capture the conversation. "Daisy told me she wanted to help you," Nana June continued. "She said she could see a very hurt child in your heart, who just needed to remember how to love." Hamish looked down at the serene face of the little one in his arms. She saved me. Not just my legs, she saved me from myself." "I know," Nana June whispered. "She can always see the good in people, even when they themselves have forgotten it. But now she's sick because of me." "Not because of you," the old woman corrected gently. "Because of her choice. Daisy chose to help you, knowing what it would cost her." At that moment, Daisy opened her eyes again and looked directly at Hamish. "Mr. McGregor," she murmured in a weak but clear voice, "can you promise me something? Anything. Little one. Anything. Promise me you'll remember who you truly are, that you'll be kind to people, that you'll teach other children like you wanted to when you were little." The words hit Hamish like an emotional tsunami. "I promise you. I promise you all that and more." Daisy smiled, and for a moment, her face regained some color. Then, "Was it worth it?" "No," Hamish said vehemently. "It shouldn't have been worth it. You shouldn't pay the price for my mistakes. We all pay prices for helping others." The girl replied with wisdom that defied her age. "The difference is choosing if it's worth it or not." Nana June extended her arms. "Now I need to take her home, sir." With a broken heart, Hamish carefully transferred Daisy into her Nana's arms. The girl looked so fragile, so small. Can I visit her?" he asked, to make sure she's all right. Nana June studied his face for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "I live in Wattlegrove, in the blue house at the end of Daisy Lane." "Yes, the street is named after her. It was the first good thing that happened in this neighborhood in years." "The street is named after her?" "When she was 5, she helped find a lost child. The whole community organized to ask the council to change the street's name in her honor. It was No Name Lane before that." Hamish felt as if he had just discovered he had been living in a completely different world. A 9-year-old girl had a street named after her, while he, with all his wealth and power, had only managed to have people pronounce his name with fear or resentment. "There's so much I don't know about her," he murmured. "Daisy doesn't do things to be known," Nana June explained. "She does them because it's the right thing to do." As the old woman prepared to leave with the girl, a reporter approached with her microphone. "Mr. McGregor, could you tell us how you feel now that you can walk again?" Hamish looked at the reporter, then at the cameras, and finally at the small figure in Nana June's arms. His next words would change not only his own life, but the world's perception of him. "What I feel," he said with a clear, firm voice, "is that I've been a fool. I've spent years believing that power and money made me important, when all this time the most important person I've met is a 9-year-old girl who has nothing material, but has more wisdom and love in her small heart than I have in all my fortune." The crowd fell silent. "For years I've hurt innocent people. I've destroyed families with my evictions. I've been cruel because I thought it made me strong. But Daisy showed me that true strength lies in choosing to be kind, even when it's difficult. The cameras captured every word, every tear that rolled down his face. From today, my company will change. We're going to build homes for families who need them, not to kick them out of the ones they already have. We're going to create schools, libraries, spaces where children can learn and dream. He turned to Nana June and Daisy. And I will keep my promise. I will be a teacher again. I will teach children everything this little teacher taught me. Daisy, from her Nana's arms, managed to smile one last time before closing her eyes, exhausted. Look after her well, Hamish said to Nana June, and tell her that tomorrow I'm going to start keeping my promise. As the old woman walked away with the girl, Hamish stood there in the middle of the park, surrounded by cameras and spectators. But for the first time in his adult life, he didn't feel alone. He felt transformed. And all thanks to a little girl who had chosen to carry his pain to save him from himself. 3 days had passed since the miracle in the park, and the world hadn't stopped talking about the case. Videos of the moment Hamish McGregor stood up to rescue little Daisy had gone viral on all platforms. News channels kept analyzing every detail, every word, every tear shed on that extraordinary afternoon. But for Hamish, none of that mattered. The only thing on his mind was the promise he had made and the image of Daisy fading in her Nana's arms. He had tried to visit her every day, but Nana June had been clear. The girl needed uninterrupted rest. That morning, however, something had changed. Hamish was in his office, on the 40th floor of the city's tallest building, but he wasn't reviewing eviction contracts as he used to. Instead, he had spread across his mahogany desk the plans for his first social construction project, a complex of decent homes for low-income families. Right on the land where he had planned to build another luxury shopping center, his assistant, Carmen Delgado, a middle-aged woman who had worked for him for 15 years, watched him with a mix of astonishment and concern from the office doorway. "Mr. McGregor," she ventured, "the investors are asking if you're really serious about these changes." Hamish looked up from the plans. His eyes, which once radiated cold calculation, now shone with a different determination, warmer, but equally intense. "Carmen, do you have grandkids?" he asked. The question caught her off guard. "Yes, sir. 2 little granddaughters. Do you love them?" "Of course," she replied without hesitation. "Would you do anything to protect them and give them a better future?" Without thinking twice, Hamish nodded. "Then you'll understand why these changes are the most serious thing I've ever done. There are thousands of children in this city who deserve the same love and protection as your grandkids, and I've been taking it away from them." Carmen remained silent, processing her boss's words. "Investors can withdraw if they want," Hamish continued. "But this is my money, my company, and my second chance to make things right." At that moment, his desk phone rang. Carmen answered. "Mr. McGregor's office." "Yes, one moment please." She covered the receiver with her hand. "It's Nana June. She says it's urgent." Hamish's heart pounded. He snatched the phone from Carmen's hands. "Nana June, how's Daisy?" The old woman's voice sounded tired, but relieved. "She's better, Mr. McGregor, much better. But I need to talk to you. There are things you need to know before you see her. I'm coming over now." "No, come this afternoon at 5. And sir, bring your heart prepared. What I'm going to tell you won't be easy to hear." The line went dead, leaving Hamish with more questions than answers. At 5 o'clock sharp, Hamish parked his car at the entrance to Wattle Grove. He had been there before, but only to oversee evictions. He had never taken the time to truly observe the place. It was a humble neighborhood, with small but well-maintained houses, tiny gardens full of colorful flowers and native plants, and children playing in the dirt streets. As he walked down Daisy Lane, he realized that all the neighbors recognized him. Some greeted him cautiously, others with frank curiosity. "Is it true you're going to help families now?" an elderly lady asked him from her porch. "Yes," Hamish replied simply. "It's true. My sister lives in the Victoria Street apartments," the woman continued. "The ones you were going to demolish next month." Hamish stopped dead in his tracks. The Victoria apartments. He had completely forgotten that he had scheduled the largest eviction of the year for the following week. 50 families who would be displaced to build an office complex. "Tell your sister to cancel the move," he said firmly. "Those apartments are not going to be demolished." The woman stared at him with wide eyes. "Really? Truly? And what's more, we're going to repair and improve them without charging them anything extra." Before the lady could respond, Hamish continued his walk towards the blue house at the end of the street. The dwelling was small but cozy, with a garden full of medicinal plants and wildflowers. Nana June was waiting for him at the door, and her expression was serious. "Come in, Mr. McGregor, we have a lot to talk about." The interior of the house was simple but warm. The walls were filled with photographs of Daisy at different stages of her short life. As a baby, taking her first steps, helping in the garden, reading books that seemed too advanced for her age. "Daisy is sleeping," Nana June explained, pointing towards a closed room. "She's been resting a lot these past few days, but she's already regaining her strength." "What exactly happened to her?" Hamish asked, taking a seat on a modest sofa. Nana June sighed deeply and sat opposite him. "To understand that, you first need to know my granddaughter's full story." "I'm listening." "Daisy isn't like other children, Mr. McGregor. She never has been. She was born with this gift, this ability to see the pain in people's souls and help them heal it. But every time she uses it, she absorbs part of that suffering." "How is something like that possible?" "I don't know," the old woman admitted. "Her mother, my daughter Elara, also had a similar gift, though not as strong. She could calm crying babies, make sick plants bloom, bring peace to places where there had been arguments." Hamish leaned forward, fascinated. "Elara met Daisy's father when she was 18. He was a young doctor who had come to the neighborhood to do volunteer work at the local clinic. They fell deeply in love." Nana June's voice cracked slightly, but when Elara told him about her gift, he got scared. He said it was impossible, that she was probably crazy. He abandoned her when he found out she was pregnant. And what happened to Elara? She died when Daisy was 3. An illness doctors could never diagnose. I believe her heart broke, and her body simply stopped fighting. Hamish felt a tightness in his chest. "So, Daisy has been alone since she was 3? With me, not alone, but without her parents. And from a very young age, she began to show the same gift as her mother, but multiplied tenfold." Nana June stood up and brought a shoebox full of letters and photographs. "Look at this," she said, showing him the images. "This is Daisy at 4, helping the neighbor's dog recover from an injury. This is her at 5, comforting Mrs. Green when her husband died." Hamish examined each photograph with growing astonishment. In all of them, Daisy appeared with an expression of concentration and compassion that seemed impossible in someone so young. When she turned 6, Nana June continued, she helped find young Tom Miller, who had gotten lost in the bush. She simply closed her eyes, placed her hand over a photograph of the little boy, and guided us directly to where he was. "How can all this be real?" "I don't know, Mr. McGregor. I only know that my granddaughter pays a terrible price every time she helps someone. After helping the lost boy, she was sick for a week. After comforting Mrs. Green, she couldn't speak for 3 days. Hamish began to understand the magnitude of what Daisy had done for him. "And with me, what price did she pay for curing me?" Nana June looked him directly in the eyes. "The highest price she's ever paid. Your pain, Mr. McGregor, was very deep. Decades of rage, resentment, and sadness. She absorbed all of that, everything. During these 3 days, she has relived every moment of rejection you felt as a child. Every time your father scorned you, every cruel decision you made to protect yourself from pain, she felt it as if it were her own." Tears began to stream down Hamish's face. That's inhumane. She's just a child." "A child who chose to save you because she could see that you weren't truly evil, just very hurt." At that moment, a weak little voice came from the room. "Nana June, is that Mr. McGregor?" Nana June smiled for the first time in the conversation. "Yes, my love. Do you want to see him?" "Yes, please." Hamish stood up, his heart beating strongly. He followed Nana June to the small room where Daisy lay in a bed covered with a colorful handmade quilt. The girl looked pale and thin, but her eyes shone with the same warmth as always. When she saw Hamish, she smiled faintly. "Hello, Mr. McGregor. How are your legs?" Hamish knelt beside the bed, tears streaming freely down his face. "My legs are fine, little one, but my heart is broken because you're sick because of me." "Not because of you," Daisy murmured. "Because of my choice, and I'd do it again." "Why?" Hamish asked in a broken voice. "Why would you sacrifice your health for someone like me?" Daisy extended her small hand towards him, and Hamish took it in his. "Because I could see the child you once were, a good child who just wanted his dad to love him, and because I knew that if I healed that hurt child, the man you are now could help many other children." "Daisy," Hamish whispered, "you're right. I've already started. I cancelled all the evictions. I'm going to build homes for needy families, and next week I'm starting to teach at the neighborhood school." The girl's eyes lit up. "You're really going to be a teacher?" "Really. And you know what else I'm going to do?" "What?" Hamish took a deep breath. "I'm going to create a foundation, It's going to be called the Daisy Miller Foundation, and it's going to help children from struggling families go to university, have books, pursue their dreams. Daisy closed her eyes, but her smile widened. That makes me very happy, Mr. McGregor. And you know what else? He continued. I want you to be the first beneficiary of the foundation. I want to pay for your best education, give you all the books you want, make sure you can develop your incredible gift in the healthiest way possible. Nana June intervened from the doorway. That's very generous, Mr. McGregor. But please, he interrupted her. Let me do this. Let me return even a small part of what Daisy has given me. Daisy opened her eyes again and looked at her Nana. Can we tell him the whole truth, Nana? Nana. June hesitated, but finally nodded. What truth? Hamish asked. Daisy looked at him with eyes full of ancient wisdom. The truth is, I also needed you to heal, Mr. McGregor. How? Because by helping you forgive your dad, I learned how to forgive mine. And by seeing how you chose to change and be a better person, I understood that maybe my dad can also change someday. Hamish felt as if all the air had left his lungs. My gift isn't just to help others, Daisy continued. It's also to help me heal myself. Every time I help someone find forgiveness, I also find a little more peace. At that moment, Hamish completely understood what had happened in the park. It hadn't just been him who had healed. Daisy had also found healing in the process. So, he murmured, we were a mutual gift. Exactly, Daisy smiled. The best gifts always work both ways. Hamish stayed there on his knees beside the bed of the most extraordinary girl he had ever met, finally understanding that the true magic wasn't in physical miracles. It was in the human heart's ability to choose love over pain, and in the extraordinary truth that sometimes saving others is the only way to save ourselves. Weeks had flown by, like pages of a beautiful book you don't want to end. Hamish had kept every one of his promises with a dedication that surprised even those who knew him best. The transformation had not only been personal but completely visible to the entire city. Evictions had turned into housing improvement programs. Scheduled demolitions transformed into free renovations. And where luxury shopping centers were once planned, schools, libraries, and community centers now grew. But of all the changes, the most extraordinary was seeing him every morning walk towards the small primary school in Wattle Grove, carrying a backpack full of books and a heart full of purpose. Daisy had observed all this transformation from her window, recovering slowly but with a permanent smile on her face. Seeing Hamish keep his word filled her with a happiness that seemed to accelerate her healing. That particular morning, something special was about to happen. Hamish stood in front of his new classroom, preparing the materials for the day's lesson. The walls, which had once been peeling and bare, were now covered with colorful drawings, world maps, and inspiring phrases written in the careful handwriting of a man who had rediscovered the magic of teaching. The 25 children in his class waited expectantly. In the first few weeks, they had been shy, almost fearful of the famous millionaire who now wanted to be their teacher. But Hamish had proven day after day that his transformation was genuine. Good morning, little dreamers, he greeted, using the phrase that had become his personal trademark. Good morning, Professor Hamish, the children replied in unison. Today, he announced with a mysterious smile, we have a very special guest, someone who wants to meet you and perhaps teach us something no book can explain. The children looked at each other with curiosity. Hamish walked to the door and opened it gently. Daisy, would you like to come in? The little girl appeared in the doorway, still a little pale, but with her eyes sparkling with excitement. She wore her favorite pink dress, now washed and ironed with special care for the occasion. A murmur of recognition ran through the classroom. All the children in the neighborhood knew Daisy, but seeing her there at school was something completely new. Hello, she said in a soft but clear voice. I'm Daisy, and I've come to tell you a very important story. What kind of story? Asked a little girl from the front row. A story about how people can change, about how love can be stronger than pain, and about how each of you has the power to make miracles. Hamish prepared a special chair for Daisy at the front of the class. When she sat down, there was something majestic about her presence that made even the most restless children sit completely still. Once upon a time there was a very rich man, Daisy began, who had forgotten how to be happy. He had so much money he could buy anything, but his heart was very sad and very angry. The children listened with absolute attention. Why was he sad? A boy asked. Because when he was little, like you, his dad told him his dreams were worthless. He told him that wanting to help others was for losers. That's wrong, declared another girl indignantly. Yes, Daisy nodded. It was very wrong. And because no one helped him heal that wound when he was little, he grew up hurting other people. Hamish listened from the side of the classroom, feeling every word as if it were the first time he had heard his own story. But one day, Daisy continued, this man decided to do something very cruel. He offered a lot of money to anyone who could cure him of an illness he had, just to mock them when they failed. And what happened? Several children asked at once. What happened? Was she a girl like us? Asked the little one. Daisy smiled. She was a girl exactly like you, with dreams, sometimes with fear, with a desire to help, and with a heart full of love. And she was able to help him, yes, but not as he thought. She didn't cure his body first, she cured his heart. She taught him to forgive his dad, to forgive himself, and to remember that we all have the ability to choose to be better. At that moment, one of the children, Marco, a little 8-year-old, whose eyes always seemed sad, raised his hand. Daisy? Yes, Marco. My dad also tells me sometimes that my dreams are silly. He says wanting to be a vet is for rich kids, not for us. A touching silence filled the classroom. Daisy got up from her chair and walked to Marco's desk. Can I ask you something, Marco? The boy nodded. Do you love animals? Yes, a lot. And when you see an injured animal, do you feel like helping it? Always. And when you imagine being a vet, do you feel happy? Marco's eyes lit up. Very happy. Daisy placed her small hand on the boy's shoulder. Then, that dream is real, Marco, and no one, not even your dad, can take it away from you. Hamish approached and knelt beside Marco's desk. You know what, Marco? He said in a gentle voice. I also had a dad who didn't believe in my dreams. But Daisy taught me that we can choose to be different. You can become the best vet in the world if you really want to. Really? Marco asked hopefully. Really? And you know what else? The Daisy Foundation is going to help you. We're going to give you books about animals. We're going to get you the opportunity to visit vet clinics. And when you're older, we're going to help you pay for your studies. Tears began to roll down Marco's cheeks, but this time they were tears of joy. Seriously? Seriously, Hamish confirmed. Because children's dreams are the most important thing in the world. Daisy looked at the whole class. Do you know what's the most magical thing about all this? What? The children asked. That when the man in the story decided to change and started helping to fulfill the dreams of other children, his own dream of being a teacher also came true. The children looked at Hamish with new understanding. You're the man in the story, a girl exclaimed. Hamish smiled and nodded. Yes, it's me, and Daisy is the brave girl who helped me remember who I truly was. And what are we in the story? Asked another child. You, Daisy said, her eyes shining. You are the best part of the whole story. You are the reason it all was worth it. At that moment, something extraordinary began to happen. The children started talking about their own dreams. One wanted to be a doctor to cure sick children. Another wanted to build homes for homeless families. One more wanted to write books that made people smile. Hamish listened to them with a full heart, but he also noticed something important. Every time a child shared their dream, Daisy looked a little stronger, a little brighter. Daisy, he whispered during a moment when the children were talking amongst themselves. Are you feeling all right? She looked at him with a radiant smile. I feel wonderful, Professor Hamish. Do you know why? Why? Because I'm seeing exactly what you are going to achieve. You're planting dreams in these children. You're healing their hearts before anyone can break them. You're being the teacher you always wanted to be. Hamish felt an emotion so profound he thought his heart would burst from his chest. And you know what else? Daisy continued. My Nana June told me last night that my mum would have been very proud of what we did together. Your mum? Yes. She also helped people heal, and now I'm continuing her work, but in a new way. I don't have to carry the pain alone anymore. Now, I have a partner who helps me. Hamish understood completely. Daisy had found a way to use her gift without paying for it with her own health, working together with him to prevent pain instead of just curing it afterwards. We're a team, he murmured. The best team in the world, Daisy confirmed. At that moment, the classroom door opened unexpectedly. Nana June appeared, but she wasn't alone. Beside her was a young man, tall, with brown hair and eyes that looked extraordinarily like Daisy's. The man looked around the classroom, his eyes finally resting on the small figure of Daisy. Daisy, he said with a trembling voice. The girl turned slowly, and when she saw the man, her face completely transformed. Dad, she whispered. Time seemed to stop completely. The 25 children in the class turned their heads towards the man in the doorway, instinctively sensing they were witnessing something monumental. Hamish stood motionless, observing the scene unfolding before his eyes, remembering the day he had stood before his own father. desperately searching for a word of love that never came. Daisy slowly rose from her chair, her small legs trembling slightly, not from physical weakness, but from the emotional intensity of the moment. For years, she had imagined this instant, she had dreamed of it in secret. But now that it was happening, it felt surreal. "Is it really you?" she asked in a voice barely audible, as if speaking too loudly might make the apparition disappear. The man, Dr. Liam O'Connell, as he would later introduce himself, had tears streaming down his face. He was taller than Daisy had imagined, with the same wavy brown hair she had inherited, and those eyes she recognized from the few photographs Nana June had kept. His hands trembled as much as his daughter's, and his face showed a mix of regret, hope, and absolute terror. "Yes, my girl, it's me. I'm your dad," he replied in a broken voice, as if the words were both a confession and a plea. Nana June remained in the doorway with an expression mixing hope and fierce protection. Her watchful eyes did not leave Liam, ready to defend her granddaughter if necessary. It had been she who, after seeing the videos of the miracle in the park repeated over and over on the news, had made the most difficult decision of her life: tirelessly search for Daisy's father until she found him working as an emergency doctor in a city hospital. "Why did you come now?" Daisy asked. And there was a wisdom in her voice that transcended her age, but also a vulnerability that reminded everyone that despite all her extraordinary gift, she was still a 9-year-old girl who had grown up without her father. Liam approached step by step, as if fearing she would disappear if he moved too quickly. Each step hurt him more than the last, carrying the weight of 9 years of absence, of lost birthdays, of sleepless nights, thinking about the daughter he had abandoned. "Because I saw the videos," he began with a trembling voice. "I saw what you did for that man. I saw your gift," and his voice completely broke, the words drowning in years of regret. "I realized I was the biggest fool in the world for not believing in your mother, for abandoning you both when you needed me most." He paused, breathing deeply to regain his composure. "All these years I've lived with the weight of knowing I had an extraordinary daughter somewhere in the world, and that I had been too cowardly, too closed-minded, to be there for her." Hamish felt an instant connection with this man's pain. He recognized the guilt, the regret, the despair of someone who realizes they have made the biggest mistake of their life. It was the same feeling he had carried for decades. Only Liam had had to live with the knowledge of having abandoned an innocent daughter. "Daisy," Liam said, kneeling to be at his daughter's height, his knees trembling so much he almost lost his balance. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I have no right to be here after all these years. But when I saw how extraordinary you are, when I understood that your mother's gift was real, when I realized I had lost the opportunity to know the most incredible person in the world, I knew I had to come and ask for your forgiveness." His eyes filled with fresh tears. "I don't expect you to forgive me immediately. I don't expect you to call me Dad. I just needed you to know that not a single day passes without me thinking of you, without me regretting the most stupid decision of my life." The children in the class watched with a mix of fascination and respect that only little ones can have for the great dramas of adult life. Unaware, they were witnessing one of the most powerful life lessons they could ever receive: the value of genuine repentance and the transformative power of forgiveness. Marco, the boy who wanted to be a vet, whispered to his classmate, "My dad has never apologized to me for anything." The observation, though innocent, resonated with several other children who came from homes where apologies were rare. Daisy studied him with those eyes that could see directly into people's souls. For a moment that felt eternal, she evaluated him in the same way she had evaluated Hamish on the day of the miracle in the park. "Are you scared too, Dad?" she asked softly, tilting her head slightly with that expression of genuine curiosity that characterized her. "Scared?" Liam blinked, surprised by the question. "Scared of not being good enough. Scared that people won't understand you. Scared that your heart is too different," Daisy explained, with the patience of someone who had learned to read people's invisible wounds. Liam felt as if she had placed her finger exactly on the deepest wound of his soul. "Yes," he admitted in a voice barely audible. "I've always had those fears, especially after meeting your mother. When she showed me her gift, when I saw things that science couldn't explain, I got so scared that I ran away." "And you regret running away?" "Every second of every day since then," Liam confessed. "But I didn't know how to come back. I didn't know how to face the harm I had caused." Daisy nodded with understanding, as if she had heard this story thousands of times in different versions. "I also have those fears sometimes," she admitted. When kids from other neighborhoods point and whisper about me, when doctors look at me like I'm a circus phenomenon, when I feel like I'm too different to belong anywhere. Hamish felt a pang of pain hearing this. He hadn't fully considered the social price Daisy paid for being who she was. But Professor Hamish taught me something very important, the girl continued. What? Asked Liam, hanging on his daughter's every word. That fear becomes smaller when we choose to love stronger than it. Daisy replied with a smile that seemed to contain all the wisdom of the universe. Hamish felt his heart swell with pride. The little one had taken the lessons they had learned together during their mutual healing process and had turned them into pure wisdom, distilled to its most powerful essence. Daisy, Liam said, with a broken voice, extending his hands towards her with a mix of hope and terror. Could you teach me how to do that? How to love stronger than fear? Because I've spent 9 years being cowardly, and I want to learn to be brave like you. The girl studied her father's outstretched hands for a moment. Hamish could see the mental process happening behind her eyes. She was evaluating not only Liam's words, but the sincerity behind them, the true intention of his heart. Finally, Daisy extended her small hand towards him. When Liam took it, something magical happened, but this time, it wasn't the kind of supernatural magic that had healed Hamish's paralyzed legs. It was the most powerful magic that exists in the universe. Genuine forgiveness between father and daughter. Love that transcends years of absence and pain. The moment their hands touched, Liam began to cry, with an intensity that surprised everyone in the classroom. They weren't tears of sadness, but of relief, of gratitude, of a weight finally lifting from his shoulders after almost a decade. The first lesson, Daisy said with a smile that lit up the entire classroom like a ray of sunshine after a storm, is that it's never too late to start over. My Nana June taught me that every day is an opportunity to choose to be better than yesterday. The children in the classroom were completely absorbed in the scene. Some had tears in their eyes, others smiled broadly, but all seemed to understand that they were witnessing something that would change the way they saw the world. At that moment, Marco, the boy who wanted to be a vet, raised his hand with an urgency he hadn't shown before. Miss Daisy? Yes, Marco. Can your dad also learn to believe in children's dreams? Because my dad always says my dreams are impossible, but after seeing what happened with you, I'm thinking maybe he can change too. Marco's question resonated with several other children who nodded vigorously. It was clear that many of them had parents who didn't believe in their abilities or dreams. Daisy looked at Liam with a mix of gentle challenge and hope. What do you think, Dad? Do you think children can achieve extraordinary things? Even things that seem impossible? Liam looked around the classroom, truly seeing for the first time the faces full of hope and infinite possibilities that surrounded him. He saw Marco with his bright eyes talking about animals. He saw a little girl who had been taking notes on everything she had heard. He saw a shy boy who now looked him directly in the eyes for the first time since he had entered. Now I know that children can not only achieve extraordinary things, he said with a firm and clear voice, addressing both the students and his daughter. They can achieve impossible things. My daughter just showed me that, and all of you are showing me right now, just by the way you have received this situation with so much love and understanding. The children applauded spontaneously, and some even stood up. The applause wasn't just for Liam, but for everything they had witnessed. The forgiveness, the reunion, the life lesson they had just received for free. Hamish approached the family group that was reforming before his eyes, feeling a profound sense of completeness. The circle that had begun with his own healing was closing in the most beautiful way possible. Dr. O'Connell, he said, extending his hand with a genuine smile. I'm Hamish McGregor. Your daughter not only completely changed my life, but she saved me from becoming someone I could never have lived with myself. Liam shook Hamish's hand with gratitude, and in that handshake, there was a mutual recognition. Both were men who had been saved by the unconditional love of an extraordinary little girl. I've followed your story in the news, Mr. McGregor. What you've achieved together is incredible. The transformation of your company, the families who will no longer be evicted, the social housing projects, it's inspiring. You know what would be even more incredible? Daisy interjected, looking at both men with that mischievous expression that appeared when she had a particularly brilliant idea. What, my girl? That you stay, that you get to know the kids in the neighborhood, that you see everything we're building here? Would you like to stay? I'd like us to be a family, Daisy replied simply, a family that helps other families. Liam looked at Nana June, who nodded with a smile through her tears. If your Nana agrees, and if you forgive me, I'd like to stay forever. I already forgave you, Dad, the moment you decided to come. Hamish felt he was witnessing the perfect closing of a circle that had begun with his own healing. Daisy had not only healed his wounds, but she had learned to heal her own in the process. "Kids," Hamish announced to the class, "I think we've just learned the most important lesson of all." "What?" several asked in unison. "That when we choose to help others, we end up helping ourselves. That when we choose to forgive, we set ourselves free. And that when we choose to believe in dreams, we make them come true." A girl from the second row raised her hand. "Professor Hamish, does this mean our class is magic?" Hamish looked at Daisy, who winked at him conspiratorially. "You know what?" he replied. "I think any class where children are taught to dream, to forgive, and to love is magic." At that moment, Daisy walked to the whiteboard and picked up a marker. "Can I write something, Professor?" Of course. In her careful 9-year-old handwriting, Daisy wrote in large letters, "Miracles happen when we choose to love stronger than our fear." Then she turned to the class. "This is going to be our special phrase. Every time someone is afraid to pursue their dreams, we're going to remember these words." The children repeated the phrase in unison, their voices filling the classroom with an energy that seemed capable of changing the world. Liam approached his daughter. "Daisy, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Dad. How did you know I would come? Did your gift tell you?" Daisy smiled with the wisdom of someone who had learned life's deepest secrets. "No, Dad. It wasn't my gift. It was my heart. My heart knew that when a person learns to truly love, that love spreads like ripples in a lake. First it touches one person, then another, and another, until it reaches all the places it needs to reach." Hamish felt he was hearing the most beautiful definition of love he had ever heard. "So," Liam said, "your curing of this man was what brought me back to you." "No, Dad. His healing was what helped you remember that love is more powerful than fear. But you already had love for me in your heart. You just needed the courage to act." At that moment, the school bell rang, indicating the end of class, but no one moved. Everyone seemed to understand that they were living a moment that would stay with them forever. "Kids," Hamish finally said, "I want you to know that each of you has the power to create miracles. Every time you choose to be kind instead of cruel, every time you help someone instead of hurting them, every time you believe in your dreams despite fear, you are creating real magic." "And what's going to happen now?" Marco asked. "Now," Daisy replied, taking her father's and Hamish's hands, "we're going to continue building a world where all children can believe in their dreams." "All together?" asked a girl. "All together," the three adults confirmed in unison, as the children finally began to leave the classroom for recess, talking excitedly about everything they had witnessed, their voices filling the corridors with a renewed energy of hope. Daisy stayed a moment longer with Hamish and her newly found father. The girl walked to the whiteboard, where the words that had defined the entire experience were still written. Carefully, she added something else below the original phrase. "Miracles happen when we choose to love stronger than our fear." And below that, in even more careful handwriting, she wrote, "And love multiplies when we share it." She turned to the two men, who had been transformed by her love. "Professor," she said softly, looking at Hamish. "Yes, little teacher. Thank you for teaching me that the best teachers are those who never stop learning. And thank you for showing me that sometimes the person who needs to be healed and the person who heals can be the same." "And what did you learn today?" Hamish asked, though he suspected that the answer would be something that would profoundly impact him. Daisy smiled, her eyes shining with pure happiness, looking at her father and then at Hamish. "I learned that when you choose to heal your own heart, you automatically give others permission to heal theirs. And that love is like miracles. The more you share it, the more you have." She paused, taking both men's hands. "But the most important thing I learned is that families aren't just made with blood. They're made with love, with forgiveness, and with the decision to be there for the people who matter." Liam knelt again, this time not from desperation, but from humility and love. "Daisy, can I ask you something?" "Of course, Dad. Could you teach me to be the dad I always should have been? I know I lost many years, but would you give me the chance to learn?" Daisy then hugged him tightly, and for the first time in 9 years, Liam felt what it was like to hug his daughter. "You didn't lose years, Dad," she murmured against his shoulder. "You just took a longer way home." Hamish watched the hug, feeling he was witnessing the most beautiful moment he had ever seen. But then Daisy extended an arm towards him, inviting him to be part of the embrace. "You too, Professor. We're a family now." At that moment, as the three hugged in the middle of the classroom that had witnessed so many transformations, Hamish fully understood the true nature of the miracle he had experienced. It hadn't just been about regaining the use of his legs, it had been about regaining his soul. It hadn't just been about finding forgiveness for his father. It had been about learning to love himself. It hadn't just been about changing from a ruthless businessman to a kind teacher. It had been about discovering that the person he had always been destined to be had been waiting inside him all along. And as they walked out of the classroom together, the three united by a love that had transcended pain, absence, and fear. The echo of the children's voices, repeating their special phrase, filled the entire school. Miracles happen when we choose to love stronger than our fear, and love multiplies when we share it. Because sometimes the most important lessons in life come wrapped in pink dresses and little girls' hearts. And sometimes the greatest miracle isn't walking after being paralyzed. It's remembering how to love after having forgotten how to do so. And sometimes the true magic isn't in supernatural powers. It's in the simple but extraordinary decision to choose love over fear, forgiveness over resentment, and hope over despair. At the end of that day, as the sun set over Wattle Grove, three people who had started the morning as strangers ended up as family. A millionaire who had offered money for a physical miracle and had received the complete transformation of his soul. A father who had fled from love out of fear and had returned to discover that it was never too late to choose bravery. And a 9-year-old girl who had learned that the greatest gift is not the power to heal others. It is the power to love yourself enough to allow others to love you too. That night, in the small blue house at the end of Daisy Lane, a family that had been broken for years gathered around the dinner table. Liam had brought native flowers for Nana June and a storybook for Daisy. Hamish had arrived with a promise that the Daisy Miller Foundation would not only help needy children, but would ensure that every child with a special gift had the necessary support to develop it healthily. But more important than any material gift, the four adults surrounding Daisy that night, Liam, Nana, June, Hamish, and Carmen, who had become part of the extended family, gave her something she had been searching for unknowingly her whole life. The certainty that she would never again have to carry the weight of helping others alone. Because the most lasting miracles are built in community, and the most powerful love is that which multiplies when shared.